to be answered in a way that you always, I mean, depends on what kind of startup you have. You may not need funding at all, and which is that your product is such that it is generating its own cash. It depends what kind of business. If you're in a product business, for example, and then to heavy product business which requires innovation, R&D, etc., then you might as well take funding after you break the barricades and start with some fund and then start developing it before you start selling it. So it's pretty understood in the venture capital industry that if you're an IP based, intellectual property based tech startup, initial years would all be for example unprofitable or loss making for you before you start making money. But if you're on a very internet based, cloud based sort of a startup which is very asset light, then you can delay the funding piece as much as possible. It can be possible. I mean, the point is, and I would like to say that it's not mandatory for everybody to take funding, because with funding comes a lot of responsibility. It's not that because you just begin another chapter when you got a venture capitalist in, because it comes with huge responsibilities. You got to make sure that these guys get the right exit at the right valuation. You got to scale up, and there are certain milestones that you got to reach every time. So depending on the nature of the funding, the type of the funding, and the level of the funding, I think all of these things are funding related. I mean, the point is that, do you really need funding? You could have a very asset light business plan and an idea, which is, for example, crowdsourcing needs a lot of people to just subscribe to that particular business idea or plan. Then you may not need funding at all. And whenever there are two ways. You go out and seek funding, and second is the people come because they certainly found your idea interesting. Now they will come after you, chasing with bags of money. Then also it's an interesting decision to, it's a vicious circle. You got to thought that that greed, saying that I don't need fund right now, or maybe I'll defer the funding only when I have to. Because if you have unutilized cash lying in the bank, that's not a good situation to be in. They want their money to be deployed, not rotting in the banks. So there are a lot of questions to be asked, and the timing should define when do you need and how much do you need, and from whom do you need. That's also very important.